Hello, hello, happy Monday. I want to come on here and talk about post full moon energies because that was brutal. That was so intense and it was very, very triggering. And I know I'm not the only one that felt it. A lot of people have been feeling the full moon triggers. As you guys know, we had a full moon on Thursday, October 17th in the sign of Aries. And what does that mean? Well, like I mentioned before, Aries are very impulsive, they're very passionate, they're very erratic, sometimes they can be very irrational, no offense. They're just very go, 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 we gotta get things done. They say things with no filter, and it's just get it done, right? And it's almost like their ego thinks before, they speak, and they do things very, very impulsively. A lot of people we're acting out of character. We're feeling very impulsive in the things that they do and the things that they say. And with me, it was causing that a little bit as well. And it was making me see things from an egoic perspective. I was quite impulsive. I didn't act on it, but I wanted to. But of course, I was always reflecting on where is this coming from. And so I'm bringing this up because I don't want people to spiritually bypass and blame things on the full moon. Just because we have a full moon, and yes, it causes us to act a certain way, it doesn't mean that it's an excuse, right? So we have to start reflecting on what it means. So where do these triggers come from? For me, I had to journal a lot. I even opened my Akashic records to see where these triggers were coming from and learning things about my behaviors. Why are old wounds resurfacing? And I learned that a lot of the wounds that came up, funny enough, were actually the ones that I mentioned in my previous video, the one that I got very personal about my journal. Those wounds were coming to surface. It was the fear of being rejected, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being let go and for someone else, it was that unworthiness. And then I realized it came from a micromanager that I had that treated me so poorly. And it literally started exactly 16 years ago, which is what we are doing right now, is clearing out those cycles from 16 years ago. Anything that started in 2007. And for me, it was this job I had. I was there for 4 years. And I had the worst, the utmost brutal micromanager anyone can ever have. She put me down all the time. I was walking on eggshells all the time. She literally had me report everything and anything to her. And I didn't have that problem before where I wasn't confident in my work. And she literally made me question my worth, my work, what I did. And that carried on in my next jobs and in my relationships with friends and especially with partners. So I was always feeling unworthy. I was always feeling like I wasn't doing good enough. And I always felt like I had to run it by the person that I was with because that's how deep-rooted that trauma caused, okay? And I thought that I overcame it. I thought that I healed that. And all of a sudden it was coming back up over the full moon, making me question if I was good enough. And I'm just like, hold on, I know I'm good enough. I know my worth. I know what I have to offer. Why is this coming up? And because Pluto, with Pluto going back, stationing direct, right? Once it stations direct November 19th, this is what's happening to a lot of us, especially those in the sign of Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, and Aries. We are getting triggered to the max to clear out those final karmic cycles, right? What are things that have been repeating in your life? Where have you repeated patterns, right? And for me, it was like, oh my God, I don't want to feel used. I don't want to feel like a second option. I like, you know what I mean? And so that was coming up. And then it was also the fear of, well, if I say this, is it's going to scare them away? Because that was how I was in the past. I was always scared that what I would say would push someone away. And then I realized, and I keep reminding myself over and over and over again, no matter what you say, if you are being authentic and you are coming from a place of love, if you lose someone being genuine, then that person is not for you. But oftentimes we are so afraid of setting boundaries. We are so afraid of speaking our truth because we are afraid of losing people. But the thing is, we're not losing anyone. If someone chooses to walk away from your life, it's because they are not meant for you. It's because they're not in alignment with you, right? You guys are not on the same frequency. So instead of being afraid of losing someone for being my authentic self, I'm no longer afraid of that. I'm going to be my authentic self, and I'm going to speak from my heart. And I have been doing that, right? And that's something that my soulmate has been testing me on. And I told him last night, I'm like, I feel like you're like a twin flame for me, because you're constantly testing my ego. You're constantly triggering my ego. But it's good, it's a lesson, right? He's teaching me so much. And I don't blame him for anything that I'm getting triggered for. He's not doing anything wrong. It's the feelings that I'm getting, the wounds that are coming up that are making me reflect on myself. And this is what we have to do, right? We don't point the finger at that person, even though that person may be making us feel a certain way. But if they're not actually doing anything, if they're not triggering you intentionally, and those are just your own wounds coming up, then we do not blame that person for them. They are a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. They are a reflection of what we need to work on. So always remind yourself, what is this person showing me? For me, it was very much like, okay, I need to balance my energy. I need to stop giving my all, because that's what I would always do in my previous relationships, right? We don't give our all to people that are not reciprocating, right? If someone cannot give you their all, then you don't give them your all. But you also want to be yourself, right? You don't want to hide who you are. So it's a weird balance. But you also have to remember that in love, in relationships, we have to remember to love ourselves. And so if we feel, it's so funny because there's this song that I heard today by India Ari, and I think it's called Private Party, and she's like, I'm having a private party. I don't know. And it's about how she realizes, like, she was feeling alone because her mom wasn't answering the phone. Her boyfriend wasn't answering the phone. And she was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I heard that song today, and I'm like, oh my God, this reminds me of me, because I was getting triggered, feeling lonely, feeling rejected, feeling abandoned. But it's not anything that they did. Granted, okay, like, sure, I was not getting the attention that I wanted, but sometimes we have to remember, we have to give ourselves that attention. In that song by India Ari, she says that, right? We have to remember that we are not alone, and we do not need to feel lonely. We have to give ourselves that company. We have to give ourselves that energy and that love. So when somebody is triggering you, that you are not getting the attention that you want, maybe you are giving them too much attention and you're not pouring that attention onto yourself. It's a reflection to you, at least in my case, and I know this was coming up for a lot of people over the weekend, but it is a reflection. Basically, when somebody's triggering you, it's got to teach you, right? So if you are getting upset, oh, this person's not giving me the attention I want. This person is rejecting me. This person is abandoning me. This person doesn't want to see me, doesn't want to hang out with me. Why are they pulling their energy back? It's because you are giving them too much energy. You are not focusing your energy onto yourself. So you got to pull back a little bit and remember who you are. You got to remember to love yourself and focus onto yourself. It doesn't mean that that person loves you any less, but it is a reminder for you to love yourselves more. So please remember to reflect on your triggers. Why are you getting triggered? Where is it coming from? And is this a repeated trigger that's been years long, 16 years long, right? So I hope this helps, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments.